Hello. This is 2003 Ford Explorer Sport Track, and noticing that it's short cycling. Now, what is short cycling? Short cycling means that the clutch, this is a compressor right here, and this is a clutch, and it's an electromagnet. Now, you're going to hear go click, click, click. So when that click comes on, the electromagnet activates and it lets pressure get the compressor pressurize the the low pressure gas that comes out of the evaporator over there, which is where it gets cold. So the cycle begins. Low pressure gas enters the back of the compressor through the low side or suction hose. It's a combo hose in this car, in the Fords, many Fords, not all. But so when the compressor compresses that, it turns into a high pressure gas. It goes through your condenser, it goes into your condenser, and as the name says, condenser, it condenses that through cooling it down. It condenses it into it exits the compressor as a high pressure liquid, and then it enters it goes through a line, and it goes through this part right here. Right here is where the orifice tube is at. Orifice tube, just a little tube, and it's got a show you. The orifice tube is this thing, and it's got you're going to see that it has usually has an arrow, and on this one the arrow goes towards the white part. I don't know if you can see the arrow, but it's built into the plastic part. So when it goes through that little tube in there, you see that metal tube in there, as a high pressure gas, it expands right there, sprays go shh, and when it does that, right there it turns really cold. I don't know if you've ever held a aerosol spray can down for a while. The can gets cold. That's a physics effect, but since it has a refrigerant R134 in it, all cars after 1994, or most of them after 1994, they converted from R12, which harmed the ozone layer. It went to R134. Now they have newer stuff. That's stupidly expensive. Go figure. But so when it gets in there, in the condenser, there's a fan right here, and this fan blows air through that evaporator right there, and that's what makes it through your vents in there. So Fords are notorious for what's called a black death. The inside, it starts flaking, and it releases. Sometimes you take it out, and it releases a black goo from in there, and then chunks of it start moving through the system. Now there's a filter. Right there, the orifice tube that, like I showed you, if it's got a mesh. I don't know if you can see, it's got a little mesh that filters any particles so that they don't make it back into the compressor. So if that gets clogged, your pressure on your high side will spike up, especially in cars that have, and I don't like it much, but cars that have a fan clutch system instead of an electrical fan that turns on every time you turn your AC. That's why I like to put to add on little small electrical fans to existing AC systems, because it speeds up the cooling process of the refrigerant when it enters as a low pressure, as a high pressure gas into the condenser. and it also extends the life of your compressor because it lowers the temperature of it makes it easier for it to pump, and also it lowers the pressure so it doesn't drag as much horsepower out of your engine. So there's a little class on automotive air conditioning. So how to diagnose the problem? So I've been getting, so now if it reaches a certain pressure, like on the high side, that's the red side, blue side is a suction side or low side. If it reaches a certain pressure, what's going to happen? It has fail-safe systems, and let me see if I find the guys are um, more into it. I think that's the high pressure right here. This is the safety high pressure um, switch. That if it reaches a certain pressure, because it could be one of the reasons is because it's got too much gas, or which is not the case on this one. I think the case on this one it's got a clogged orifice tube from debris. Even though this compressor was replaced, I don't know how long ago, but a while ago. It's been a while. Person who owned the car replaced it a while ago. So if it clogs it up, the pressure on the high side will go up, and this will tell the compressor to shut off. So back to the short cycling, you start hearing it. Short cycling happen many reasons. You could have too high of a pressure, and it will trigger the safety switch, which is tell it to shut off until the pressure goes down, and then we'll go back in. So when you hear the engine going clack, 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 not the engine, the compressor, clack, 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 that's short cycling. It's supposed to be constant until it reaches a certain temperature. You know, it has other safety features. If it gets too cold, it doesn't need to. So they have others, or high RPMs. They have some systems that will shut the compressor off to protect it from high RPMs. But also another reason for short cycling is that it doesn't have enough, which is the most common one, but I don't think this is the problem here. This is the low pressure switch, and this detects refrigerant in the system. So if the refrigerant in the system is low, it doesn't trigger, there's not enough in there, so it doesn't trigger this switch, and it will start shutting off the compressor if it doesn't have enough. So sometimes when you don't have enough gas, it's been leaked through a hose or wherever, you'll hear the compressor going click, 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 and it won't cool as much. It will be hard, it'll take its hard time to cooling. So sometimes this switch can be defective. It could have enough refrigerant, or 134 in this case is an 03. And if this is defective, it's not detecting it correctly, and this will tell the compressor to not shut off. And a compressor also has a mechanical release valve in case something gets clogged in there and the switches fail. It will actually release. It has a mechanical release valve. You'll hear it. You'll see smoke from under the car coming out when it's completely clogged. And the solution to the Black Death has been traditionally to replace the and if it messes up your compressor, to replace the condenser. Some people replace the evaporator. Also, this is the accumulator. People call it a dryer, but when accumulator, which is the correct area, if it's in the low side. You see, the low side is a thick hose. The thick hose is the low side. Think about it. High side, smaller diameter vessel. So the same amount of gas in a smaller diameter is going to be a higher pressure. If you put the same amount of gas in a bigger diameter at the same pressure, and you're sucking on it, it's going to be a lower pressure. So thick is low pressure, and the thin ones is high pressure. So we're going to start it. That was a long class, 9 minutes. We're going to start it. And with the AC, and right away, you're going to see the high pressure spike. Watch the compressor kick on. There it kicked on. All right, so watch the gauge. Woohoo, look at that. It's going right up there. Now 250, and remember, you're asking yourself, what's the pressure at which it should be operating? I'm not comfortable. It depends on the room temperature, what temperature you're in. So in Florida, right now it's almost 90, 80 something. And now the fan is doing its job. But sometimes when you have a bad fan clutch, which is not the case in this truck, it's operating at a good speed. So I don't like to see cars operating over 200. It's going down, but I don't, it'll stabilize. Right now, I usually leave it at 30, 35. So you can go and look up a chart online. But when I first started it up, it went up to like 300. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to open the system up and I'm going to replace the orifice tube on it. And I'm going to make another video on how to replace the orifice tube. Okay? So, give you a little bit of class in diagnostics. I think I'm going to change the name of the video. All right.